welcome to Sneaky Stories, home of short stories you can sneak into your day. Get ready to go on an adventure with some of the Sneaky Universe characters. Today we have a story from the Axolotl Lake series. I'm your storyteller, Pauline, and I can't wait to share today's story with you. Let the adventure begin. Remember, there aren't any pictures, so you'll need to imagine them. You can imagine the pictures any way you like.
The Vanishing Algae. Serena and Carlos, two axolotls with bright shiny feathery gills, lived by a lake. They had many neighbours including colourful fish, croaking frogs, quacking ducks and the wise old turtle named Cato. Their days were usually filled with playful swimming, exploring the nooks and crannies of their underwater world and feasting on their favourite food, algae. However, something strange had been happening at the pond. Each morning, Serena and Carlos noticed that the algae was vanishing. What was once an abundant green carpet covering the pond's surface was now sparse and patchy. The axolotls were worried. Algae wasn't just their primary food source. It was essential for the entire ecosystem of the pond. "Serena, have you noticed the algae disappearing?" Carlos asked one morning, his gills fluttering with concern. "I have, Carlos. It's been getting worse each day. We need to figure out what's happening before there's none left," Serena replied, her eyes narrowing with determination. The two axolotls decided to investigate. They swam to the far side of the pond where the algae was somewhat still plentiful. As they inspected the area, they noticed something peculiar. Tiny trails leading away from the algae beds. "These trails look like they've been made by something small," Carlos observed. "Let's follow them and see where they lead," Serena suggested. They swam along the trails, winding through the underwater foliage and around clusters of rocks. The trails led them to a narrow, hidden tunnel at the edge of the pond. With a determined nod to each other, they slipped into the tunnel. The tunnel was dark and winding. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a small secret pond hidden deep within the forest. This pond was different. It was surrounded by tall, strange-looking plants. As they explored this new pond, they saw something unexpected. A group of crayfish busy munching on the algae. It seems that the crayfish had been sneaking into the axolotl's pond at night and stealing their algae to bring back to their own pond. "Now we know what's been happening to our algae," Carlos whispered to Serena. "But why are they doing this?" "Let's find out," Serena replied, already making her way to the group. One particularly large crayfish, who seemed to be the leader, noticed them and scuttled over. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" the crayfish demanded. "We're from the nearby pond. Our algae has been disappearing, and we followed the trails to here," Serena explained. "Why are you taking our algae?" The crayfish leader sighed. "Our pond used to have plenty of algae, but recently the water quality has changed, and our algae started dying off. We had no choice but to find food elsewhere. We didn't mean any harm." Carlos's eyes softened. "We understand, but taking our algae is causing problems for our pond too. Maybe we can help each other." The crayfish leader looked thoughtful. "How could we do that?" "Let's work together to find out what's affecting your pond's water quality," Serena suggested. "If we can fix the problem, your algae will grow back and you won't need to take ours." The crayfish agreed, and the two axolotls returned to their pond to gather supplies. Over the next few days, Serena and Carlos, along with a few curious crayfish, tested the water in the crayfish's pond. They discovered that runoff from a nearby human campsite was polluting the water. "How can we solve this problem?" Serena asked Carlos and the group of crayfish. "Maybe we can scare them off somehow. Humans are easily frightened, right?" Carlos suggested. "But how? We're small and not exactly terrifying," declared one of the crayfish. "We just need to be clever about it," responded Serena. "What if we make their camping experience really unpleasant, like messing with their food or creating noise at night?" "That's a good start. Maybe we can scatter their food and make it look like something has tampered with it, added Carlos. Crayfish, you're good at getting into tight places. Can you handle that? Absolutely, they cried out in unison. We can sneak into their camps and scatter their food supplies. They'll think some wild animal is causing trouble, continued the biggest crayfish. Another crayfish added, we could also make some noise. Click our claws, move around their tents. It'll scare them. Serena was nodding, and Carlos and I can create a bit of disturbance in the water. Splash around, make waves. It'll sound like something big is moving in the pond. Perfect, said Carlos. We'll make it so uncomfortable that they won't want to stay. We'll start tonight. We'll keep our movements coordinated. If we do it right, they'll be gone by the morning, Serena said decisively, taking charge. Great plan, everyone. Let's get to work and reclaim our clean pond. Let's make sure these humans don't want to come back. The group dispersed and got ready for the evening's work, ready to play their part in the plan to make the humans' camping experience so unpleasant that they decide they'll leave the pond area for good. The crayfish had hidden themselves nearby so they could watch the campers. Once the campers had zipped themselves into their tents for the night, the crayfish started to make their way into the campsite. The first to arrive were the smallest crayfish, barely bigger than a marble. They scuttled towards the picnic baskets, their pincers clicking softly. With surprising dexterity, they managed to untie the straps and peek inside. Bags of chips were ripped open, muesli bars scattered across the grass, and a loaf of bread became a playground for a dozen tiny pincers. Their work complete, they scurried back to the reeds, leaving behind a scene of mild chaos. Next came the bigger crayfish. They focused on the water jugs, leaving them precariously balanced on the edge of picnic tables. With a well-timed snap of a claw, the jug would topple over with a thud, creating a miniature flood. Meanwhile, Serena and Carlos were putting on a show in the water. They surged back and forth in a coordinated dance, creating ripples that slapped against the shore. Thanks to the crayfish, the campers could hear strange clicking noises all around them, unlike any they'd heard before. The campers, huddled inside their tents, whispered nervously and with fear magnified by the darkness. The night wore on. Punctuated by the crayfish's well-rehearsed chaos, sleep was elusive, replaced by worry and a growing sense of unease. As the first rays of dawn peeked over the horizon, the campers emerged from their tents. Their once idyllic campsite now resembled a scene of mild destruction, soggy backpacks, spilled food, and a general sense of disarray. "What was that racket last night?" grumbled one camper, shivering in the morning chill. "I don't know," said another, peering nervously at the still water of the pond. "But I'm getting out of here." One by one, the campers began packing up their tents. The sounds of zippers and the murmur of discontent filled the air. The crayfish, watching from the safety of the reeds, exchanged triumphant clicks. Their mission was complete. The humans were leaving. The pond would no longer be contaminated by the runoff from the campsite. Soon after, the water quality in the crayfish's pond began to improve. New algae started to grow, and the crayfish no longer needed to steal from the axolotl's pond. Both ponds thrived, and the creatures lived in harmony.
If you would like a free Sneaky Universe colouring and activity book, visit www.sneakyuniverse.com/Sneaky Stories Podcast. Sneaky Stories is a Sneaky Universe production. Written, hosted and edited by Pauline Malcoon. The music is by Trailer Works. If you would like more stories, visit www.sneakyuniverse.com.